Suddenly, Jonathan Harker realized he was truly trapped inside Count Dracula's mysterious castle. He searched for a way out, but a heavy, helpless feeling began to creep over him. He decided to keep his growing fears a secret from the Count, especially after watching the Count doing simple chores, confirming there were no servants anywhere. Yet, Jonathan found a strange comfort in the crucifix he'd received earlier, pondering its mysterious power and the unexpected help it offered in his lonely, scary situation. As the clock struck midnight, Jonathan Harker found himself deep in conversation with Count Dracula. The Count just poured out the incredible history of Transylvania and his Zekeli ancestors. He spoke of mighty battles and fierce conquests as if he'd been right there, emphasizing the incredible pride and warlike spirit of his family, even a powerful Dracula who fought the Turks. Jonathan Harker was absolutely fascinated by the Count's intensity and ancient pride, but also a little bit disturbed. On May 12th, Count Dracula began to really dig into Jonathan Harker's knowledge. He had so many questions about English law and business, especially about solicitors and shipping. Jonathan, quite amazed, explained all the tricky details, noticing how incredibly sharp the Count's mind truly was. But then, the Count insisted Jonathan write letters to Peter Hawkins and others, demanding he would remain at the castle for another month, making it crystal clear he'd be monitoring every single word. Jonathan, ever so clever, secretly decided he would write to Mina Harker in shorthand, hoping to reveal his true, hidden situation. Jonathan Harker watches Count Dracula scribble down lots of notes, leaving some of them wide open. Then, after sealing Jonathan's letters and his own, the Count gives Jonathan a really spooky warning. He tells him never to sleep anywhere else in the castle, hinting at all sorts of hidden dangers. Jonathan instantly understands the horrible truth, feeling a growing shiver of fear and wonder about being trapped there. Later that very night, Jonathan Harker, longing for just a little bit of freedom, peered out his window. But oh, what a sight met his eyes! Count Dracula himself emerged from a window below, not walking, but crawling, down the sheer castle wall, face down, with his dark cloak spread wide like enormous leathery wings. It was an utterly impossible, unnatural sight that filled Jonathan with a deep, chilling repulsion and absolute terror, confirming every single one of his deepest, darkest fears about the Count's true monstrous nature. On May 15th, after watching Count Dracula leave the castle in his strange lizard fashion once more, Jonathan Harker quickly took his chance to explore. But oh no! Every single door was locked tight, even the big front entrance. And the key? It was gone. Jonathan figured it had to be hiding in the Count's room. So Jonathan pushed and pushed, forcing open a really heavy door. And guess what? It opened up into an old, comfortable wing of the castle, where he found a little bit of quiet, a brief calm amidst all his dread. Jonathan Harker, hoping for a peaceful night in the castle's newly found wing, instead awoke to an astonishing and terrifying vision. Suddenly, 3 beautiful, seductive young women materialized before him, their eyes piercing, their teeth sharp, and, get this, they cast no shadows at all. They whispered and laughed, and Jonathan felt a powerful, confusing mix of wicked desire and deadly fear. Then, one fair-haired woman moved closer, bending down with a sensuous, predatory intent, as if to kiss his throat. Just as one of the mysterious women leaned in, ready to bite Jonathan Harker, Count Dracula bursts into the room, absolutely furious. He violently throws the woman aside, declaring Jonathan is his, and warns the 3 women to never meddle with his plans. The women, though, just mock the Count, teasing him about his lack of love. But he promises them Jonathan, saying, "When I am done with him," then he gives them a mysterious moving bag before they simply vanish into the moonlight. Overwhelmed by all this horror, Jonathan just collapses into unconsciousness. Jonathan Harker blinked awake in his bed, feeling so disoriented. He wasn't even sure if his recent terrifying encounter had been real or just a dream. But then he noticed little things, like his clothes folded in a way he didn't recognize. It meant someone must have moved him. What a relief, though! His diary was still there, completely untouched. The Count must have been in such a hurry. And even with all his fears, his room now felt like a temporary, safe spot away from those dreadful women. On May 18th, Jonathan Harker simply had to find out. He went back to the room where he'd had such a terrifying experience, hoping it was all just a dream. But oh my! The door at the top of the stairs was shut tight, all broken and splintered, and fastened securely from the inside. This discovery made it crystal clear. His scary encounter was absolutely real. And now, Jonathan knew he had to act. On May 19th, Count Dracula, ever so smooth, told Jonathan Harker to write 3 letters. But these weren't just any letters, they were dated for the future, making it seem like Jonathan was leaving soon and arriving in Bistritz. Poor Jonathan felt so trapped and was super scared of the Count's anger, so he pretended to go along with it. He knew this was his only chance to buy himself more time to escape. And here's the chilling part. Jonathan realized those dates the Count gave him actually showed how little time he had left to live. On May 28th, Jonathan Harker discovered something truly exciting. A whole band of Scani, or gypsies, had made camp right in the castle courtyard. This was an incredible chance for him to finally communicate. So, Jonathan quickly penned some letters, one in secret shorthand for Mina Harker and another for Peter Hawkins, carefully explaining his situation without revealing the full, terrifying truth. Then, with a hopeful toss, he sent the letters and a shiny gold piece out his window to one of the Scani, wishing they would be posted. Later that very day, Count Dracula steps into Harker's room, holding the letters Harker had tried to send. He calmly opens the one for Peter Hawkins, but when his eyes land on Mina Harker's shorthand letter, with its strange, secret symbols, the Count's eyes suddenly blaze with wicked anger. He burns it right away, declaring it an outrage upon friendship and hospitality. Then, almost as if nothing happened, he politely gives Harker a fresh envelope for Mr. Hawkins before locking Harker right back in his room. On May 31st, Jonathan Harker stumbled upon a truly shocking sight. Every single piece of his paper, all his careful notes, his vital travel documents, even his traveling suit, his warm overcoat, and his rug had utterly vanished from his things. This chilling discovery confirmed a brand new, wicked scheme, leaving him more isolated than ever, with no way to communicate or escape from the castle's grasp. On June 17th, Jonathan Harker heard the exciting sounds of whips and horses as 2 huge leader wagons, pulled by 8 powerful horses and driven by Slovaks, rumbled right into the castle courtyard. He rushed to his door, hoping to join them, but oh no, he found it locked tight from the outside. Jonathan tried to call out to the Slovaks, but a Scani hetman quickly stepped in, making sure they ignored his desperate pleas. Then, from the wagons, came big, empty wooden boxes. Before dawn on June 24th, Jonathan Harker saw something truly strange. Count Dracula was climbing out of a window, wearing Harker's very own traveling suit and carrying that mysterious bag the 3 women had before. Harker suddenly realized the Count planned to pretend to be him, leaving a trail of fake clues and blaming Harker for anything bad that happened. Later, Harker fell into a strange, sleepy trance and saw ghostly shapes of the 3 women materialize right out of the moonlight. It was so terrifying, he screamed and ran straight back to his room. Right after his terrifying hypnotic experience, Jonathan Harker hears a stifled wail from Count Dracula's room, followed by an unsettling silence. But then an agonized cry from a woman echoes from the courtyard. She desperately demands her child from Monster, who Jonathan realizes must be the Count. Suddenly, the Count's harsh whisper is heard, and a whole pack of wolves pours into the courtyard, silencing the woman. Jonathan Harker understands the horrific fate of the woman's child and her own terrible end. On the morning of June 25th, a sudden burst of courage filled Jonathan Harker, and he decided it was time to act. He thought about the Count's strange nighttime habits and then a daring idea. Jonathan would try to escape by copying the Count, crawling right out his window and into the Count's room. With a heavy heart, he said a desperate goodbye to Mina Harker and his dear friend, Peter Hawkins, knowing just how incredibly dangerous his plan was. Later that day, on June 25th, Jonathan Harker bravely scales the castle wall, all the way up to Count Dracula's window. Inside, he finds the Count's room empty, dusty, and barely furnished. But wow! There's a huge pile of ancient gold and sparkling jewels. Then he finds a heavy door and goes down a winding staircase through a dark, yucky-smelling passage, which leads him to an old, ruined chapel, like a spooky graveyard. And there, he sees the wooden boxes the Slovaks brought, all filled with earth. And guess what? In one of them, he finds Count Dracula. He looks younger, all full of fresh blood, and just like he's sleeping, but not really. Imagine Jonathan Harker peeking into Count Dracula's box. The Count looks younger, but oh so wrong. Grotesquely gorged with blood, his eyes wide open and stony. Jonathan tries to search him for keys, but those hateful, seemingly conscious eyes totally repel him. Overwhelmed by the monstrous truth and Dracula's terrible plans for London, Harker flees the crypt, scrambling up the castle wall back to his room, where he collapses, utterly exhausted and terrified. On June 29th, Jonathan Harker spots Count Dracula leaving the castle again, wearing Jonathan's very own clothes. It's a chilling confirmation of the Count's sneaky plan to impersonate him. Later, the Count wakes Jonathan up, announcing he's leaving soon, and that Jonathan can go home the very next day. Jonathan feels super suspicious and tries to leave right away, but the Count, with a truly diabolical smile, refuses. The Count then leads Jonathan to the main door, and oh my, the howling of wolves outside intensifies. As the Count opens the door, revealing a whole pack of waiting wolves, Jonathan realizes the trap and cries out, "Let me wait until morning!" The Count slams the door shut, and they return to the library. Back in his room, Jonathan Harker suddenly hears Count Dracula's voice right outside his door. Dracula is telling unseen things to wait, proclaiming, "Tonight is mine, tomorrow night is yours." And then a low, sweet ripple of laughter follows. Jonathan throws open the door to find the three terrible women there, licking their lips before they quickly flee. It's clear then, his doom is frightfully, terribly near, and he falls to his knees in despair. On the morning of June 30th, Jonathan Harker, feeling a fleeting sense of safety as the sun rose, tried to escape through the main hall door. But alas, it was hopelessly locked. Desperate, he resolved to scale the castle wall once more, hoping to find a key hidden away in the Count's room. He slipped into the Count's empty room, then bravely descended once more to the crypt. And there, in his box, he found the Count. He looked even more monstrous, gorged with blood, with a terrible, mocking smile on his bloated face. Jonathan Harker, overcome with a fierce desire to destroy the monster, snatches up a shovel and strikes at the Count's face. But the Count's eyes snap open, filled with a terrifying basilisk horror that freezes Harker. The shovel only manages to gash the Count's forehead before falling away. Then Harker hears the approaching Zgani and Slovaks, realizing they're coming to move the boxes. He flees back to the Count's room, but wham! The winding stair door slams shut, locking him in, and then he hears the boxes being nailed down and carried away, confirming his complete, terrible imprisonment. Jonathan Harker suddenly finds himself utterly alone in the vast, mysterious castle, a true prisoner, with only those chilling, awful women for company. But Jonathan won't stay. He resolves to escape, planning a desperate, daring climb up the castle wall, even taking some gold along. He even considers jumping from the dizzying precipice, thinking it might be better than facing those dreadful monsters, as he whispers a final, heartfelt goodbye to his beloved Mina and everything he holds dear.